Support for this podcast is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' Avatar, Fire and Ash. From director James Cameron, the world of Avatar will change forever. See the film critics are saying is bigger, better, and more emotional than ever, and the best one yet. Avatar, Fire and Ash, in theaters December 19th. Now awards eligible in all categories. For your consideration. Hi, everyone. It's the Prestige Junkie Podcast. And this week, once again, Chris Rosen and I went on Substack Live to talk about breaking news. This time it was the Golden Globe nominations. So you'll hear the Substack Live conversation that Chris and I had as the nominations were being rolled out, as well as our breakdown afterwards of everything that happened and everything that it means. After that, you'll hear my interview with Jeremy Allen White, the star of Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. I'm Katie Rich. This is the Prestige Junkie Podcast. This is the Prestige Junkie Podcast. It is the morning of the Golden Globe nominations as we're recording. Chris and I just finished going live on Substack. We're still live on Substack as we talk, but you might be hearing this on the podcast later today. Thank you to everyone who's joining us. Stick around. We're going to break down what we just saw in the 2025 Golden Globe nominations, which were fun. I think pretty good. I don't know. It's early. You just said wow to wrap all of that up, Chris. So,
well, I mean, Wicked.
Where are you?
Let's start at the top there. Wicked missing comedy musical. I just am blown away that happened. I don't understand. I didn't even understand that. I mean, I don't think we've talked about this. Like, I don't think Wicked is the strongest Best Picture contender. We know the Oscars have like an aversion to sequels. This was not as well received, I don't believe, in any fashion as the first film.
And I think the box office is struggling more than expected. It definitely was
more front loaded and not having as much of an impact. While still a huge hit. Obviously, we're talking like big scale hits, but still. Sure. But not like making
Zootopia
it here
2 seems to be a little bit stealing its attention.
I mean, not making it here is kind of like that to me. I felt like if you're going to have one of the sequels in, you should have Avatar in instead of Wicked, and now I really believe that.
But it went for Golden Globes and for neither.
Well, I'm not surprised the Golden Globes didn't go for Avatar necessarily, but I mean, like
they put it in for box office hit, which is.
I mean, Wicked getting in for box office hit, that's fine. That's where it got it, and Avatar 2, and maybe that like kind of went against it. But I don't know. I'm like, that to me seems a little dire. Not that this matters in terms of like whatever, but I do think it shows that
it does show something.
It's a little weaker, and that maybe hurts, if not Ariana Grande, then Cynthia Erivo in Best Actress, which I would say is like she's got to be hanging on by a thread, because if that doesn't get in for Best Picture, I don't know how she would get in for Best Actress.
Well, Cynthia Erivo missed the Critics' Choice lineup, which was 6 people, right, for Critics' Choice, and so her missing that was a big deal. I mean, she got that Golden Globe nomination, which I think that would have been really wild, because that, dividing it between musical and comedy. They haven't sent me a full list, so I'm trying to find, I didn't write down a note to check and see who made it in there. But
for which one? Musical comedy?
Oh, just for any of them. I'm just looking for a list of nominees. But for Cynthia Erivo making it on that list of hilarious comedies, like If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, and What Sentimental Value was in there. Just a lot of laugh out loud experiences in that musical or comedy category.
Yeah, it's Rose Byrne, Cynthia Erivo, Kate Hudson, Chase Infinity, Amanda Seyfried for Testament of Anne Lee, and Emma Stone for Begonia. Now, that's musical and comedy, but I would say the only one of these that's a comedy is Begonia, and even that ends with like a pin drop. So none of these are very funny. At least you could say Wicked's a musical. I know Testament of Anne Lee is also a musical, but not in the same way as Wicked, I would argue, but sure.
No, not quite the same way.
Yeah, so Wicked missing, I think, is pretty rough. A great day for Secret Agent, Katie, I would argue, which got in for Wagner Moura, who I think it actually... So with the nominations, and like we were saying during the live stream, they're going to 6 on all of these. So any fringe contenders basically are getting in. So with supporting actor, all 6 of the guys who we think will get in were nominated here. Only 5 of those 6 will go
And
over.
I would say supporting actor, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, supporting actor seems to just be those 6. I guess Delroy Lindo is the one person who's still outside of it who could well pop up at SAG, but otherwise that category is pretty baked in at this point.
But then I'm looking at this in terms of wins. So this year, for regardless, the comedy categories are more top heavy in my estimation than drama categories, right?
Yeah, because they put One Battle After Another in comedy, and Marty Supreme, and all kinds of things that don't really belong there.
So that category is for actor. So we were talking the top contenders for actor we've talked about are Leo and Timmy Chalamet and whatever, and they're against they're against each other in comedy, right? So so then drama, now you have Michael B. Jordan, who could certainly win, but I'm looking at Wagner Moura there because I'm if Wagner Moura wins drama actor over Joel Edgerton, Oscar Isaac, Dwayne Johnson, Michael B. Jordan, and Jeremy Allen White. Outside of Michael B. Jordan, I don't know any of those other people really would be win competitive.
Yeah.
That's a great sign. And then Wagner Moura, who has been like a critic's favorite already, is then positioned as like the alternate to either Leo or Timmy as a spoiler.
You're proposing the exact Fernando Torres narrative that we had last year, where like I think the actress in a drama was quieter than in a comedy because I guess Nora and Amelia Perez were in comedy last year. I really struggle to go back and remember.
Well, last year we had Demi Moore in comedy for Substance.
So was Mikey Madison? Was Nora also in comedy?
Yes. So it was Mikey Madison and Demi Moore were against each other, and Demi won with her great speech, and that like kind of propelled her forward. And then Fernando Torres won the Drama Globe and was an automatic. All of a sudden she's like a top contender. I do think like that'll happen here as well, but I think Wagner Moura is like ahead of where Fernando Torres was because she was so late. It felt like people were really coming aboard that movie late.
Yes, because that movie I didn't have the like Cannes bump. I think it did play at Cannes. I'm just sorry. I'm looking back at who Fernando Torres beat. Like just a real lineup of like who the hell's going to win this: Pamela Anderson, Angelina Jolie, Nicole Kidman, Tilda Swinton, Kate Winslet. Like that category was not really competitive. And I think that with Michael B. Jordan there, or even Choo Choo Train Dreams, like there's some more popular movies
win,
in there this year.
And maybe Michael B. Jordan, but I do like that.
What you think? I mean, I think Sinners did pretty well here. Like it did everything it needed to.
Yeah, no. Sinners is obviously a top Best Picture contender, and I think this is great. For Michael B. Jordan just to be nominated here, obviously, I think helps his bona fides.
It would have been very shocking if he hadn't been. But no, I just think the Brazilian impact on the Golden Globes, like it does. Did you see Timothée Chalamet running around with a Brazilian flag sweatshirt, Marty Supreme? It was
great.
I guess it's like Sao Paulo Comic-Con is what was happening.
I think that's what it was, or it's like
CX.
It's something like CX something or whatever.
Yeah, I got a press release about Paul Giamatti being there for a Star Trek thing.
Yes.
So anyway, Brazil still popping up.
And then in the other side for actress, we're gonna have a similar thing. So like Rose Byrne is in comedy. Now it's a harder category certainly, but like. She's got Cynthia Erivo, Kate Hudson, Chase Infinity, Amanda Seyfried, and Emma Stone. I do think if Rose Byrne wins this comedy category against pretty formidable competition, at least most of these people are on the Oscar bubble.
Who are you really going to say is going to... I mean, like, Emma Stone obviously is a powerhouse when it comes to these things, but Begonia, Begonia, I guess, is more popular than If I Had Legs, because that movie is pretty divisive. But
I guess I would say, like, if Chase Infinity could win here for one battle, would be great for her. I think just getting nominated is great, because, again, she's also probably in, but, like, on the kind of the back end, because you're like, oh, it's a smaller part. But then if Rose Byrne wins, and obviously we're assuming Jessie Buckley will win for actor or actress in a drama, that's a pretty great double too then, because then you're like, okay, there's that's like the alternative. And then like there's Rose Byrne with her multiple critics awards. She won LA over the weekend. She's already won New York. It would be kind of defy logic if she didn't win National Society of Film Critics. She also won NBR.
National Society of Film Critics, when is that? Is that this week?
I think that's this week. Okay. There's so many societies and so many film critics, but I'm like, she's definitely being well positioned she's being positioned as like the number 2 to Jessie Buckley, and we'll see how strong.
So too.
If she could carry that movie, like last year we were like, oh, like I was like last year we were talking about Best Actress. It did feel like it was Mikey Madison versus Demi Moore, but I kept being like, is Fernanda actually the runner up? Yeah. Because like she carried that movie basically to Best Picture.
Yep.
And so Rose Byrne is not going to carry If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You to Best Picture.
Yeah.
But what if she carries it to like a screenplay nomination?
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, then she's like a real contender to beat Jessie Buckley if Hamnet maybe underperforms or whatever. So those are really interesting.
Let's get both Bronsteins in this screenplay category. Ronald Bronstein, co-writer of Marty Supreme, and Mary Bronstein, writer and director of If I Had Legs. I would love to see it personally. Okay. What do we want to talk about TV awards at all? I don't have a lot.
We could talk about it. I mean, maybe like towards the end. I still think.
Sure.
I feel like we should keep going on the movies, Katie.
All right. I'm still trying to like scroll through and even like see what we saw. Okay. So we talked about Wicked as the big snub in the comedy category. I mean, we should say double Linklater comedy nominations. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to the Golden Globes, is we can do all of our best guesses. I don't think literally anyone would have predicted both Nouvelle Vague and Blue Moon in for comedy, especially with Wicked being kicked out by one of them. Like, what a twist.
It's pretty crazy. Both are great movies. And I would say this is a great day, obviously, for Blue Moon and Ethan Hawke, because again, like this is not, the Golden Globes is not industry, right? They're not an industry group. They're still like whatever. But the visibility of being nominated and winning at this point of the year is very vital. And so like
giving a Golden Globe speech is I think the most valuable thing you can do in the final, like, because the Golden Globes, I think, the day before Oscar voting opens.
Yes. So what if Ethan Hawke win? I don't think he's going to win comedy. He's in the comedy category with
Against
Leo
Timmy and Leo.
Timmy. But if he ever won in that category, that would be crazy.
Be a very Globesy twist for Ethan Hawke to win.
And he would I mean, like, I already think he's going to get in, but I would say then, like, that's a really great sign of him getting in and kind of being like a Rose Byrne type. Is he a potential spoiler to win? And similarly, if Sony, which is so great at this Sony Classics, as we know, can that also get dragged to a screenplay nomination? Because, like, why not, right? Like, I mean, like, they could, if the movies are strong and the performances are good, then, you know, maybe that could be carried through. So that's, and being here in Best Picture is crazy and really, really great, I would say.
I should also say that I think, so Ethan Hawke tied Rose Byrne. Los Angeles Film Critics give a two hang on.
It's a genderless
acting category. I feel like there was one where there was two men who tied in the Los Angeles thing, but I can't remember who it was. But I think Rose Byrne and Ethan Hawke shared the lead prize.
Yes.
And then Andrew Scott got in for supporting for Blue Moon from that group, which, like, again, I think Andrew Scott is very good in that movie. I don't get it. I do not get how he is who you are going to single out in the supporting actor field. I don't think that's a real thing Oscar-wise. Like, I guess a shocker Andrew Scott nomination isn't unheard of, but it does just seem to bode well for that movie.
I think it's just, it keeps showing up places, and it could not have a better studio or distributor to get it forward
to do
than
that.
Sony.
I mean, I'm still here. We keep talking about Fernando Torres. Like, that was a Sony Classics movie. They have the ability to push movies on this timeline exceedingly well. What do you think about what do we think about how well Begonia is hanging in there? Because I think I said this on Friday with Joyce, like, I maybe would have called it dead, and then it's hung in.
It did exactly what it needed to do here. It got picture and the 2 acting nominations. I still think they're all on the outside, but it's done really well. Begonia, I think it was on MBR, right? And I think it did
well with Critics' Choice.
And it did well with Critics' Choice. So I think it's still in there. We'll see how SAG responds to it. I mean, if they both get in at SAG, obviously that would be great value. I'm just not sure. I think it's at that, like, I feel like it's at the bottom of the Best Picture field, and, like we had said, like, Wicked and Avatar are there. Maybe one of them gets in. I think now I feel really confident in, like, the triple neon international titles where it was just an accident.
Or quadruple, or quintuple, because they got all 5 at the Golden Globes.
No, I'm saying in terms of Best Picture. I feel like
it was just an accident, Secret Agent, and Sentimental Value.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those will get Best Picture bids, but then, like, yeah, so, like, Begonia, I think is like probably like 10 or 11 in Best Picture, and then we'll see how it does with the actors. I also think screenplay for that one too. So I don't think it's dead at all, but, like, it definitely did what it needed to do here.
I mean, in terms of Best Actor, like, I coming out of Telluride, I just feel like it was so much of being like, oh, Jesse Plemons is gonna win an Oscar finally, and, you know, One Battle After Another surfaces soon after that. We kind of give up on that, but I mean, do we feel like it is now Leo Timmy, Michael B. Jordan, Wagner Moura, and Joel Edgerton, Ethan Hawke, Jesse Plemons?
I kind of think so.
Showdown?
I feel like probably with, like, Ethan Hawke slightly ahead, but I feel like Michael B. Jordan has done everything he needs to keep getting in. I don't want to see him drop out, so I'm not even going to speak it into existence. But I just think it's going to
happen.
And the movie's too strong, I think, at this point, right?
Like, I guess BAFTAs is what we really have to keep an eye on for Sinners, because the question that remains about that is if it's too American to translate to International Academy.
I feel like BAFTAs this year is after the Oscar nominations, right? Like,
we're not
even going to have that. I think that's what it is.
Oh my God!
And if you're in the comments, I got to Google this, but I got to.
Yeah. Also, to everyone who's still with us on Substack Live, please throw us in your takeaways and your thoughts, because we are processing this in real time right alongside you. How about Jay Kelly, Chris? In a spoiler for today's newsletter, you have an interview with Nicholas Patel about his score, which I think is wonderful. Did not make it in there, but you know, George Clooney popping up, good for him. It's getting in. I did not make it into a Best Picture category.
I think that's probably another death knell then for its Best Picture chances. I'm sure Netflix would disagree. Let the Golden
Globes be a death knell?
Well, I just think it needs to show up there. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Nouvelle Vague got in and not Jay Kelly. That seems like tough, and especially with like obviously like Sandler and George Clooney getting in for acting. I think that Jay Kelly's like towards the bottom of that Best Picture field anyway, and. You know, I know it's like playing really well with actors and I think writers. That's its like 2 strongest branches probably. And like, I think it'll get in for writing. And I think Sandler should be able to get in for acting. And then that is strong enough to get in for picture when I still don't think it's people like it. But I mean, I don't know. So I'm not as confident in that for Best Picture at this point. And I think it would have helped to get in here. Maybe it's not a death knell. Maybe that's an overreach, but I think it would have been not getting in, and Blue Moon and like Nouvelle Vague getting in here is crazy to me. So
yeah, well, I actually just processed now looking at this that Train Dreams also didn't get into the to the picture. Like the Netflix Best Picture nominations of the Globes are Frankenstein and Nouvelle Vague. That's crazy.
But at the same time, I'm like all of the like if you were ranking the Best Picture drama category, it does feel like Train Dreams would be 7 anyway. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that surprised it didn't make it in because these are the other ones, and then you got like One Battle of Marty Supreme. In the comedy. I don't know. I feel like Train Dreams is like, I'm like weighing on that. I'm chewing along with you. I think it's fine.
If you look at the Golden Globe drama 6, like I think all of those we think would get in for picture. And so then you, at the Oscars, so then you add in Marty Supreme plus One Battle, that gets you to 8.
And then Train Dreams 9.
Train Dreams
then
plus
one something else, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah. Wow.
I loved seeing our good friend No Other Choice. That's like one of my faves of the year.
Oh,
so like getting
movie.
that in for comedy was great, and Lee Byung-hun is also great. I don't think he's going to keep going. I think he's like on the outside of the best actor race, but great.
I mean, I wrote about this months ago, and I just stand by it. I think Best Actor is so stacked this year compared to all the other categories, and it's exciting, and it's a bummer that we have to like choose between these. But when you get things like George Clooney, Lee Byung-hun, Jesse Plemons, like getting in at the Globes, this is the kind of spreading the wealth that I like to see. Can I jump to some of the listener questions?
Yes,
people in the Substack.
please.
So Demi asked, what are the odds of J-Lon getting into Best Actress at the Oscars? Not impossible, as always, I think. I don't know what the what more does she do? I mean, especially with If I Had Legs, I think being in a similar lane in terms of like actress led, probably not going to get nominated anywhere else, challenging movie. Like, does Rose Byrne have too much of a lead for J-Law to catch up?
I kind of think yes. And like I mentioned this on Friday, and I think, or we were talking about it, like it does feel like that you have to kind of compare these two movies because they are kind of about, at least in the same world, right? About like motherhood and like, but I think If I Had Legs is a more palatable version of Die My Love, even if it's like
they're both challenging.
They're both insane.
If I Had Legs, if I Had Legs is funny.
Yeah, there is some humor to it, and it's like Die My Love is pretty depressing.
I mean, there's jokes in Die My Love.
She's really funny. Actually, I was like I feel like if Die My Love was actually this is gonna sound fucked, but I was like, if Die My Love was funnier, I think I would have liked it more if it was more darkly funny, because when she's allowed to be darkly funny in it, it's like that great J-Law lane that she's so good at. But I mean, it is a great performance. I don't know if she's gonna go all the way.
Yeah. And then Amy Wirtz also points out that Is This Thing On? It's not happening.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
It's just, I know.
Well, we talked about, you mentioned this, Katey. Is This Thing On? About a stand-up comedy movie is a drama. The categorizations here never defy any kind of normal logic.
It does not
normal logic.
It does not make any sense. I'm bummed about that. I really like that movie. Rental Family also missed. So Searchlight
That's really tough.
That's really tough. I mean, Rental Families, that's been the tough road it's had this entire time. When it goes to TIFF and gets this kind of like warm-ish reaction and doesn't stand a chance for the audience award, like that's the path for that movie. And Is This Thing On? Like, I don't know. I don't really know what it could have done differently. I keep thinking about last year's Oscar race where it just felt like there's no clear winner, there's no front runner. Like it would have been an easier path for it in a different year, but there's just not as much oxygen to go around for something like Is This Thing On, I don't think.
100%. I totally agree with you. I was like, Rental Family feels like an Oscar movie from like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So like I think obviously like if this was like a different era, that kind of Searchlight movie would have made money at the box office, either as like, a sleeper hit and then like gone on to get like multiple Oscar nominations, and like maybe people would have dunked on it or whatever, but it would have been there. Sure. Is This Thing On? I think you're exactly, it just feels like it was too small to like be last. You know what I mean? Like usually these last movies are like Marty Supreme or Wolf of Wall Street or like some big noisy thing or Complete Unknown. And like Is This Thing On is kind of like this smaller movie that probably needed a much longer runway. And they've done a good job of like I get nothing but emails about screenings, and I know they're really proud of the movie, and like it's good. Like I don't know a single person who doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But it just feels like this year it's too crowded to get in, and it was just a little late starting, and like that's going to be one of those bummers where you're just like, oh, what a great movie. How did that not get like any nominations? But I just think that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, but I also think in the long run, that's really good for like Bradley Cooper as a director, that like he's had two just like mondo Oscar contender movies. And for this one to kind of slip by and be like a little underrated is probably a good thing. Like, because people hopefully keep discovering that movie for ever.
I wouldn't hazard to psychoanalyze Bradley Cooper, but I also feel like his
movies are begging us to psychoanalyze.
But like it reminds you a little of Marty style, where it was like, you know, Marty before he won for Departed, and obviously like is this thing on is not Departed, but before he won for Departed, he was really trying to win an Oscar, right? Like those movies, there was so much effort in like Gangs of New York and The Aviator and all these things, and like then he kind of just was like fucking and gave up, and then he won. And for Bradley, I feel like this movie is definitely like a response to like the amount of, you know, like he worked so much on Maestro and obviously and Star is Born. This feels not tossed off, but it is like much more effortless in its construction and just feels like really more like chill in a lot of ways. And I hope that he then carries through whatever his next thing is that he's going to direct with that kind of chilled enthusiasm, because like I think that makes for a better movie, because it just is like when it just felt like you were looking at the effort in Maestro, and you don't have that in Is This Thing On? And of course, Maestro gets all the Oscar nominations, and this won't get any, maybe, but like, sure.
He's just a really good director.
He is. I mean, he's so good. I think that movie's great.
I'm excited for it. Okay, I'm just going to keep going through the comedies.
Yes, please.
Or through the categories. Animated, good for you. Demon Slayer, Crunchyroll is really on a roll between like that and Chainsaw Man were just like massive hits, which is something that we need in the world. I have no idea how to predict if there will be 2 movies with demon in the title at the Oscars. Shout out to Marlon Wayans pronouncing Little Amelie's. I don't remember what he said, but it was.
I think he said it was definitely like 3 different words. He made Amelie 3 separate words.
I mean, the animated, I just feel like it's still just a K-pop demon hunter's walk, but it is interesting to see Elio keep popping up. Like, good for our friends at Disney who are pushing that movie up the hill. I thought the movie was charming.
It's fine. I'll be curious to see if this category, if it is K-pop, it does keep winning everything, but I'll be like, Zootopia's success has been so big. I do wonder if people will like kind of spin around on that. And is it like the alternative to K-pop Demon Hunters, like kind of peaking at the right time?
That's really hard though. Like Moana 2, I feel like did the same thing last year, and everyone was like, good for you. And then Flow wins, you know, like, which I guess is like good for Arco, if that's what's happening.
I mean, Arco is definitely like the Flow coded movie, I would imagine. So we'll see if Neon
like
can
Arco,
get that in there.
Fine, but I don't think it's a Flow really. You and I both forgot that the cinematic and box office achievement category existed.
I completely forgot it existed. And so we've seen this before, like Barbie was like the winner, I think, right? And it's like when you're a Best Picture contender and you're in this category, it's kind of bad to win, because it's like you're not going to win Best Picture.
So congratulations to Sinners for winning this.
Well, it feels like Sinners will win this, which is like kind of probably fine in the end, because it's still going to get nominated, but it obviously would not win in its category, I would argue. So we'll see if it does. I don't know if it would win both. And that means something else wins drama. So hang on.
For drama, do you think that means like Hamnet wins and then Sinners gets the box office?
I think so. I think that's probably what you would have here.
That's probably a logical out. I mean, it could win both. What won last year? You said Barbie.
I'm going to look. Let's see. Cinematic and box office achievement, Golden Globes. I'm so excited to look at this Wikipedia page. Let's see.
I can't even
So the first year they had it was Barbie.
Okay.
Then last year was Wicked.
Oh, okay.
And that was it. So...
And hang on, and Wicked could win this,
or Avatar,
as they're like constantly, because Avatar, it opens so close to when the Globes are happening. Like
it's already box office achievement, Katie. They said it right here. It's got to be true. It's already box office. It already made $1 million. It's great.
If we take this category at face value that it has meaning, what deserves to win? Like if anyone deserves to win this, what should it be?
So it's such a absolutely dementedly worded category, cinematic and box office achievement. So to me, it would be.
Don't forget the Oscars did the Oscar cheer moment with Flash entering the Speed Force. Like everything's been embarrassing for a while.
Let me see. I got to pull up this list. Hang on. What else is on it?
Avatar, F1, K-pop Demon Hunters, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which I don't think was a hit, really. Sinners, Weapons, Wicked for Good, and Zootopia 2.
I mean, none of these.
I think it should be Zootopia 2.
It should probably be Zootopia 2, or it will probably be Avatar, I guess, or Wicked, or Sinners. I mean, Sinners could easily win this, I guess.
It would be, I mean, as much as I love K-pop Demon Hunters, it is the cultural phenomenon of the year. It is like spiritually bankrupt for it to be allowed to win, given that Netflix barely wanted to put it in theaters. I don't understand. Having it in this category is just crazed. I know they also counted like, I think they said they counted like streams and stuff as part of this. No. Cinema and box office do not mean streaming. Okay, this is a battle that we're losing. Wait, hang on. While we're talking about Netflix, I just realized another snub occurred to me. Wake Up Dead Man, nowhere.
Yeah, nowhere here. Bummer.
That might be the best of the Knives Out movies.
I think it's great.
Sucks
and they're
that it
really
is getting
pushing
ignored.
it hard. And I think it's a great movie, and we'll see how it does on the service next. It comes out this week on Friday. But I do think it's basically a lone screenplay hope, and then we'll see if Ryan can get in there again. He's already gotten in for the other two.
Yeah.
It's tough with the third movies. I think Avatar is going to face this too. It's like, even though the Oscars are clearly averse to sequels, when there was like a pent up demand and excitement for like Glass Onion, there was more excitement for, regardless of the quality of the movies, at least this is anecdotal. It felt like to me there was more excitement for Glass Onion as the first after Knives Out than there is for Wake Up Dead Man. And the same with like Avatar, there was way more excitement for Way of Water. At least, while I understand Avatar is going to make $1 billion and it's going to be fine.
Better.
But like, I just feel like there was more excitement and more, and same with Wicked even, right? You know what I mean? Like that's why it's hard to get that excitement back again. Yeah. And that enthusiasm that really helps you get to nominations. And so like, I feel like Wake Up Dead Man, while it's awesome, I do agree. I think it might be the best. I personally think it's better than Glass Onion, and it might be as good as Knives Out. I do really love Knives Out.
I haven't seen it in a while.
But this movie is great, and I just don't know if it'll get in. But
I'm looking at the box office achievement, and there are 4 original movies in that lineup. I kind of F1 is original. Like I know F1 is IP, but I still think it counts.
Oh, it's original, yeah, sure. I mean, it's just like
I just think it's worth noting.
Cars.
We're talking about kind of exhaustion with these third movies and lack of enthusiasm. Zootopia 2 was like 10 years later sequel. Like there's something to be said for just giving the people something new. So think about that. Non-English language motion picture, Neon gets 5 in there. Good for them. I don't even do they have a 6 that could have stuck in there somewhere? I think
I don't
5
think
is
so.
5 is plenty.
Their 5 is their 5.
Surratt getting 2 nominations. They got that and scores. Just kind of rules. Like you got the dream Surratt experience too, because you saw it at the TIFF press screening and got it like blared at you and walked out feeling dizzy, I guess.
I'm really excited to see how it does on the short list. I think the score is actually in play, and getting a nomination here is really cool because the music is like kind of overpowering, and it's also really good. And
I don't think it's the best score year either from like the heavy hitters. I think there's room for surprise in there.
So I'm like, if it could getting in here is great for visibility. If it gets on the short list for score, that's great. And I think sound is also competitive. And then even if it doesn't get in for international feature, because I do feel like it could miss over those other 5 that are on the other 4 neons and the voice of Hind Rajab. I feel like are probably the top 5
being
for
kind
most
of at
people.
the bottom of the neon list, probably.
And then Surratt maybe 6 because it's a little more polarizing, but it's also probably very much a type of movie that the people who love it maybe put it at the top of their list, and so maybe that helps it get in.
Yeah. Surratt would probably be my bottom of the list of those 6 on there, but that's a lot of great movies on there. That's not really an insult to it. Also, for my movie Fantasy League, I haven't checked it on yours in a while, but this is my first Hind Rajab points, I think. So good for me.
Wow, I had it in one of my leagues too.
You've been doing well. I was told by Joe that you were like near the top of the Podcasters League. I think it's the Creators League now. So congratulations, you're
I'm a creator, Katie.
We're both creators. Okay, scrolling down all the performances. I think we're good on acting. And do you have any other further acting thoughts? Director, it's a lineup of 6 again. I do think Jafar Panahi making it into this is, as much as like this is kind of the expected 6, like if he missed here, it would be some evidence of like normie breakthrough ability of that movie, but he's just strolling, you know? Like who do you kick out of that 6 for the Oscars? Or DGA for that matter? It's coming out fairly soon.
I mean, I feel like most people would say probably Guillermo would be the one, right? I mean, like, is he going to miss? Or I'm more of the Joachim Trier. I think is going to miss. To me, that Sentimental Value, no matter how many acting nominations it gets, it just reeks of Marriage Story and Holdovers, where you have these great, like, very well appointed dramas that the director misses. Like, you know what I mean? Where it just is like, oh, like you're underrating the director's contributions, and the director is also the writer, so we're going to cover him there. And so I do think like he would be out over the rest of these. For the DGA, I'll be curious. I mean, that was where James Mangold popped last year. I guess you'd say, is Josh Safdie going to pop in there? But I don't know. It might be too late. And he's not coded like James Mangold, who was like an industry veteran, like kind of forever.
Coded?
So
is that what you said?
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he's like, Josh Safdie is not like James Mangold coded would be like Guillermo or somebody like, you know, who's obviously like an acclaimed filmmaker who's got a lot of ties in the industry. And Josh is a little younger. Maybe I know he's got the Marty imprimatur, but not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at like Park Chan-wook and Kleber Mendoza Filho for the Strong Neon movies. Like they're in there somewhere. I don't like DGA is not where I would expect them to pop. I mean, although DGA doesn't have the WGA rules where you have to like be in the guild. Like, can Jafar Panahi get a DGA nomination?
I'm sure somebody, I don't know off the top of my head. I would say yes.
Sound off in the comments on Substack if you know. I think yes also, but because like AFI gave it was just an accident a special award because it wasn't eligible for their, American list. Whether Hamnet was on there, I don't know. I guess because Hamnet must be American in some way. Anyway, these things are always very confusing. So screenplay, you're talking about Joachim Trier in Screenplay at the Oscars. He's in here for this one. It gets a lineup of 6. Does it match 1-to-1 to picture or to director? No.
Yes, it does, actually.
No, Frankenstein isn't in there.
Right.
So what?
So
Marty Supreme.
Marty Supreme.
Yeah, that's the swap. Okay, so that's what you're saying is that Del Toro and Safdie is basically the spots for the Oscars, and possibly both of them miss out. Score, Seurat, that's kind of wild. F1, sure. I mean, I think that was a pretty good score, actually.
Great score. Hamnet in there as well. Johnny Greenwood for One Battle, Sinners, and Frankenstein. I guess, like we said, like no Jay Kelly, which is a bummer because I love the Nicholas Bertel score. Not just because I interviewed him. I think it's really great as well.
There's not a ton of other scores I can really think. I was saying it was weaker. You can disagree with me. I don't think there's a ton of stuff.
I mean, like,
out.
I would have done, like, Marty Supreme, I think, is great. You could say, like, Ann Lee here for Daniel Blumberg, though he's in song. Did it make it song?
No, it didn't make it in song. I know.
So, like, that's tough.
I think Ann Lee is a sole nominee at this one, which is a bummer. And Daniel Blumberg just won an Oscar, so, I think he's fine. But also, I think the music in Ann Lee is incredible and a huge achievement and, like, more interesting than The Brutalist in some ways. But what are you going to do? Original song... No Diane Warren. I don't know what her Globes track record is, though. Like, I don't think that the Globes are as attached to her as the Oscars are. So I'm not sure how much to make of that.
I'm Googling Katey. She's got 5 nominations.
Oh, yeah, that's nothing compared to her
She's
Oscar
won
track
twice.
record.
She won for Burlesque.
Wow, good for her.
And then she won for The Life Ahead.
Oh, that's the Italian one. That she performed on the roof of the Academy Museum at the Oscars. Okay. I remember this vividly.
This was 4 years ago. I don't even remember it happening.
I don't think 2 Wicked songs. There's 2 Wicked songs in Globes. I don't think that's a realistic thing to expect for the Oscars, but like, I don't know. It's just
I don't think so either. I think The Girl in the Bubble would be the one.
I'm just kind of relieved that doesn't feel like a real contender to Golden, because it would be the most idiotic thing in the history of the Oscars for Golden not to win this. So just whatever we can do to clear that path. I am looking at this long list of names attached to it. I do not feel for Marlon Wayans having to go through
Marlon Wayans. In this house, we are fine with Marlon Wayans' terrible pronunciations because we are sympathetic to his plight.
We do not imagine we could do any better. No. Although Sky P. Marshall nailed it. All right, that's the end of the film nominations. Anything you want to say before we do a quick pivot to TV and then wrap this up?
Let's do TV, Katey.
Okay. Pluribus showed up a few places as one of the few new shows. I mean, that's really the thing about these Globe noms, is just to see which of the newer shows are popping in any way. Pluribus did pretty well. All Her Fault and The Beast in Me and The Girlfriend, which is a show that you're telling me exists. In this limited series. Yes. I had no idea. Did you watch it, or you just know about it?
No, I know about it because my parents watch it. They watch a lot of this stuff, and then I hear from them about it.
So those, and then Task, I guess, is the only other new show. That only got in for Mark Ruffalo. And that's coming back for a second season, I think they said. So it's a drama. And Chad Powers. Good for you, Glenn Powell, for getting that Chad Powers nomination. So, it feels like a repeat of the Emmys mostly, I think is the takeaway.
Kind of, yeah. And, I mean, we'll see. We'll get, we'll see what SAG does. I mean, The Pit obviously would probably be the favorite here in drama series because it won the Emmy. I'd imagine we'll just kind of rubber stamp it unless they want to say Pluribus as the new show. You won.
Because the Globes are used to famously want to put their stamp on something new and exciting. And I feel like more lately it's been a lot of being like, we also love adolescence, let us give it an award, and I think we would both root for it to do something different if possible, but I imagine Owen Cooper and Stephen Graham and everybody's just gonna be busy.
It'll probably be like the studio. They're definitely going to want. How could they not let the studio win a Golden Globe when they had a whole episode at the Golden Globes? So I feel like that'll obviously win, and then Seth will win actor, that kind of thing, and we'll see. I mean, I'd be curious to see. Mark Ruffalo is a newcomer here. Diego Luna, your boy. That's great.
Although, actually, I'm realizing that because they combine all the supporting things, that Owen Cooper's got to go up against Tramell Tillman, who won for drama. So I don't know how you pick between the two of them, because Severance is also such a big thing. But yes, not to skip over Diego Luna. Also, my prediction that Diego Luna's movie, because of the Spider-Woman, would be a surprise nominee. Didn't pan out, but, you know.
I got to say, Katey, that's made so much sense in the moment. I was like, you're really on it. You're onto something here. I mean, it would have been very much a Globe-style J-Lo nomination or a Tona Tua nomination would have been very Globes.
You don't get the glory if you don't put it out there. So, okay, so at the end, we have stand-up, best performance in stand-up comedy on television. So it's not even best stand-up special. It's best performance in a stand-up special.
I mean, I think however they were, it is. I don't understand this category at all, but sure. Who's going to win? Ricky Gervais. They love them at the Golden Globes.
I guess so. If anyone has what feels like a real prediction about who's going to win this,
he's already won, right? Let me see. I'm going to Wikipedia this. I know he won up once. Let me see.
I mean, this category's only existed for a couple of years. There's not a ton.
Ricky Gervais won the first year. Last year was Ali Wong over Jamie Foxx, Nikki Glaser, Seth Meyers, Adam Sandler, Rami Youssef, and Nikki Glaser was a host and kind of made, right? Wasn't she hosting last year?
Yeah, she hosted last year. She's hosting again this year.
So Ali Wong won, Ricky Gervais previously. So I would put Ricky Gervais out front, and just because of the history with the Globes, and they seem to like him, but who knows?
Sure. I'm not seeing anything super grabby in this, but I'm also no stand-up expert. So other people feel free to weigh in. Podcast. Sorry to Ben Shapiro. I'm sure now this is further evidence of Hollywood's liberal bias that he's not getting this nomination. No, I feel like we said from the very beginning that this would be a bunch of celebrities. Who I need to pull up the list of who was on the short list to see which famous people got snubbed. But Armchair Expert, Good Hang, and Smartless, I would have told you the minute this podcast existed.
Again, and speaking of the if Amy Poehler doesn't win, I would be kind of surprised just because she's hosted the Globes. It just feels like the fix would be in. So why would she win?
I mean, I guess Smartless has something it could do.
That could get Will Arnett in a Golden Globe this year. And we could say it's for our favorite movie. Is this thing on?
I mean, Pod Save America. I guess Joe Rogan is the big thing, and Theo Von. I know people know, but in terms of people who are famous who have been in movies, this is everybody who would have been eligible.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of NPR being the token politics-y news show, but
is it a show of support for NPR as its funding is cut? Is that it?
Are we doing? It could be. Getting, is that how the Globes?
I don't know. Maybe they're they're turning over a new leaf and they're progressive.
I mean, it's still unclear how many of them live in the United States and have any idea who Ben Shapiro is, which was my whole take on why that nomination was never going to happen. Okay, I think we're getting toward the end. Final call for any comments in the Substack chat if anybody wants to say anything. But pretty good Globes list. I don't know what it would take for me to be outraged or disappointed by the Globes. I don't is what we root for.
I'm there's nothing to be outraged about, and I'll be curious to see. Like I said, all of these are well positioned to have an impact on how we view the Oscar race in phase 2 and into the nominations. So that's fine.
I mean, so the Oscar shortlist voting is happening now. That's mostly in crafts categories, so it's kind of hard to say any way that it will be affected by the Globes. International feature is obviously happening now. I mean, that category, the way that they vote on that is so particular that I can't even imagine the Globes have an impact on that either. Is there anything you think the Globes will do to impact the shortlist? I guess is my question.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I will say, does this, no, period. That's it. Nothing. I have nothing else to say. No, it will not impact shortlist.
So we'll get National Society of Film Critics sometime this week, as you said. I imagine other smaller critics groups are voting. I think Washington, D.C. voted over the weekend. At some point, I'll write about that in the newsletter. But then the last big thing before the holidays is the shortlist announcement next Tuesday, which we will be covering on the podcast. I don't know. We could go live and discuss it, but we could also just put it on the podcast. So let me know if you have a strong feeling, listeners, one way or another, about how we do this. And then we'll take a break for the holidays, and all the Oscar voters will finally watch a lot of these movies. How you feeling? You think we got a good race on our hands?
I think so. I'll be hopefully. I mean, it does feel like we're really kind of chugging towards a one battle win, so that'll be cool. But we'll see. Chugga choo choo applies to Train Dreams, but also the one battle. Ocean waves. It's ocean waves, Katey. We're riding the ocean waves.
The waves are crashing us into the one battle shore somewhere. This was a fun time. Thank you to everyone for following on Substack or listening on the podcast. After Party will be back this Friday. We're going to talk about International Feature with Chris Feil. Hang on for a moment. We'll be right back with my conversation with Golden Globe nominee and star of Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, Jeremy Allen White. Support for this podcast is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' Avatar, Fire and Ash. From director James Cameron, the world of Avatar will change forever. See the film critics are saying is bigger, better, and more emotional than ever, and the best one yet. Avatar, Fire and Ash, in theaters December 19th. Now awards eligible in all categories. For your consideration. Now let's hear my conversation with Jeremy Allen White. He plays Bruce Springsteen in the very distinctive kind of musical biopic, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Jeremy Allen White is one of those actors who's often mistaken for having had overnight success, and The Bear definitely did make him a megastar very quickly when it premiered a few years ago. But he's also been acting since he was a teenager and spent more than a decade on the Showtime series Shameless before The Bear came along. That gave him a really fascinating attitude toward work, about how to show up on set and treat other people, about how to push yourself in a role, and then about how not to take opportunities for granted when they come along. That's definitely what happened after he met with director Scott Cooper, and then Cooper called a little while later and asked him to play Bruce Springsteen. It's a really tall order for anyone, and White was on the set of The Bear when he was offered the role and took a pretty unusual step of asking for a full week to consider before he said yes. I asked him in our conversation how he spent that week deliberating while he was also filming another role, and then what he did next. And that includes keeping from being overwhelmed by access not just to the real Bruce Springsteen, but hours and hours of footage and information about him. It's a lot to take on for playing a character in one really particular period in his life. Deliver Me From Nowhere is a really internal movie. It follows Springsteen as he is spending a lot of time alone writing the album that would become Nebraska. So we also talked about how years of acting in front of the camera taught Jeremy Allen White how to do very little in front of it, and then how you actually know when you've gotten it right. You can hear all of that and much more in my conversation with the star of Deliver Me From Nowhere, Jeremy Allen White. You've talked about how your first time meeting Scott Cooper was, you didn't talk about this project at all. It was just kind of a conversation. And I'm curious about how many of those conversations you have with directors or other filmmakers and how they usually go compared to, the connection you built with Scott that led to this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think those sort of, they could call them like a general meeting, I suppose, is pretty commonplace. And, whether that goes well or you feel that it goes well or maybe doesn't go well is not necessarily an indication of, if you are eventually going to do something with that person. But with Scott, it felt so immediately easy, I think, for us to talk. It seemed very clear that our taste lined up almost, perfectly. I asked him about a lot of his films and more specifically like the actors that he uses, which are some of my favorite actors. And we really just talked about that. And then I left the meeting just saying, I hope something comes up because I'm a great admirer of yours. And he said, I hope so too.
Did he secretly know this was coming and just not tell you?
Correct. That's right. I think he just didn't know. I think he was trying to feel me out and see if we were gonna, connect. And I think there was like a period where there was another job I might have been doing at one point in that same time. Like, I don't know exactly what was going on, but it was above my pay grade, whatever it was. But the important part is we connected, and I think liked each other. And then a couple months later, I was in Chicago and I was shooting The Bear, and my agent called and said, have you ever listened to the record Nebraska? I said, yeah, it's been maybe 10 years, but yeah, I know that record. And he said, give it another listen. And I did. And I felt like I knew where we were going with this. But I loved revisiting that record. I was excited at the idea, but also very nervous about the idea of portraying someone as well known as Bruce.
Yeah.
But then I was told it's Scott, and I read Scott's script that he wrote, and it was so specific. And I felt in very good hands with Scott, and I feel like it took a lot of trust for all of us. But I think, for me, for sure, to step into this thing, and I needed to trust Scott, and really follow him, completely. And I was able to do that because I am such an admirer, of his, you know.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if you have that meeting where you think that there's no stakes, right? You're just building a connection with another person. Then when something comes to this, if it scares you, you at least know that you have that, as opposed to if that first meeting was like him trying to sell you on something and you trying to sell him. Like, it feels like that's the way to do it.
For sure, yeah, very low stakes. Like,
Yeah.
people just like get along. And again, like, I think, that's a good point. Maybe if it was someone I didn't speak to, I mean, I took about a week to think about taking the job. And, maybe if Scott and I hadn't had that time together, I wouldn't have felt comfortable asking for the time. Maybe I would have shut it down and freaked out. Maybe I would have said yes immediately without really kind of like, doing the thinking and process that I had before going, okay, I can serve this in some way. This is my job to take. It's not somebody else's. So yeah, I think it was important to have had that time, even though we didn't discuss, this particular project.
Yeah. So you're on set filming The Bear while you're taking that week to deliberate it?
That's right.
So, I mean, you've had a lifetime of this, of like having a show, having kind of a steady job and trying to fit movies in on the side. And I wonder about that balancing act where like you're committing to something, but obviously trying to find other things. Do you have to like silo off? Like, these are my hours of the day where I can think about something else. Do you get something out of putting your head in another headspace, prepping for a movie role, going back to set? How does that balance work for you?
I'm not good at considering like the next job when I'm on set on anything.
Yeah.
I almost try to, if I can, I will push it down the line, to a place where I can really give it the attention that I think it is most often like due.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's not easy when I'm shooting something. I like to just kind of keep my mind where it's at. But I think I understood the weight and the complications of this job in particular. And again, like I said, Scott and I got along so well, and I love his work so much. I knew I had to. I had to come up with something to say.
Yeah.
But they gave me about a week because again, Scott understands me as well, and I think he knew it's not a decision made lightly. And if it was, maybe he would have felt differently. I think there are some actors that go out there and any role that comes their way, they go, yeah, I'm the one. Like, I should be doing this. And I'm not that way. I need to make sure, that my voice is the right one. And because Bruce is so known, and well loved, I felt it, especially, I guess, important.
Yeah. Well, I'm also imagining 10 years ago, if you had asked for a week to decide on a role, they would have been like, nope, goodbye. Like the power that you have now to be able to make that choice is also huge.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You've been so generous talking about, Bruce's participation in this, Warren Zane's, the amount of archival information that you have. And there's so much to draw on that I wondered if there was a point in your prep or if like you could have gotten to a point where there was too much information. Like, there's so much to know about Bruce. And obviously the parameters of this movie are so small, but it feels like there's only so much you can research before maybe you go crazy. How'd you figure that out?
No, I definitely went crazy. I think, no, it's like I I had an understanding or I had what I thought was my understanding of Bruce Springsteen, and I knew Bruce's music, but I was no expert on Bruce Springsteen before starting this process. And I just tried to take it all in, and I didn't know what I was going to use and what I wasn't going to use, and I wasn't even really thinking about that. I was just trying to get as much information as I could, and I was listening to his book, which he voices, his, Born to Run, his memoir.
But that's his voice now, not his 1980s
which
voice.
Is also something I took into consideration, and there were several interviews that I had found that were, from 1979 and 1980 that, sounded still like him, but not like the Bruce we have today. And I think as I got it drove me crazy because for several reasons. One was I was just trying to figure out do I need to hang on to this stuff? Do I just
Mhm.
let it seep into me? Like, do I need to start making a chart, or can I just trust that this is kind of like seeping in the way that I want it to? And then the other way it started driving me crazy was the more I got to know Bruce through reading about him or watching about him or his one-man show or, his book or concert footage, and then in also getting to know him and spending time with him, my admiration for him sort of grew and grew and grew. And this already figure that loomed very large just got kind of larger and larger, and then it became overwhelming, and I
Yeah.
started questioning my ability to sort of show up and do justice. And then I think what was nice as we started getting closer and closer to filming is, in the beginning of the process of pre-production, I read the script several times, and then I kind of put it away, and I was just thinking about Bruce. And then I picked the script up again maybe 2 months before we started filming, and then all of that focus it's like, everything got smaller, everything got focused, everything got more direct, and I trusted that all this kind of like information and listening and watching that I've done is in there somewhere. But let me focus on this story, on the task at hand, on this young man's mind. Forget about Bruce Springsteen for a second.
Yeah, this is this guy. This is not the capital
What's
B
going on?
Bruce.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there things that you like didn't research that now you're like, oh, I forgot all about that? Did it stay, or was it all like gone from your brain?
For some reason, the early stuff stuck with me childhood, and not just because it's visited in the film, but even like his start, his start in Asbury Park and his time in bar bands and all that stuff. Like that stuff stuck with me in a way. Whereas like kind of like Darkness on the Edge of Town and all that stuff that was even like closer to when the film takes place, for some reason that didn't land as heavy. I think I was really interested in that, like in that kid dancing in the mirror because he liked Elvis so much. I mean, that was my kind of focus. And then it came back in with the River Tour and obviously with Warren's book and that sort of like focus of the time of writing Nebraska.
You got like the core memory stuff in there, and
core memory stuff. And then Patty was really important to me throughout filming. I mean, he hadn't met her yet, but I thought about Patty a lot while I was.
What did you think about in regards to Patty?
I think, I went over to Bruce's house before filming. He lives not very far from the house he grew up in New Jersey. And I had dinner with just him and Patty. And I was so struck. They're so in love with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so
famously, I feel like everyone who's ever seen them for a second knows that.
Yeah, it's wild. And and to witness it and spend the evening with them and see how affectionate they were being, to hear their stories, to hear Bruce's story, and then to leave Bruce's house and kind of like look at this like beautiful home and this driveway that was close to his driveway of the house with no heat that he grew up in just down the road, and to see him with Patty. I think I started questioning, what's this crisis? How can I connect to this crisis? And I think the fear that Bruce had and that I understood that he's spoken a lot about was like, am I going to be able to have a family? Am I going to be able to be a good partner to somebody?
Yeah.
And then I just started thinking about, well, what if he never got there?
Mm-hmm.
How sad would that be? What if he met Patty, but he wasn't at a place where he was able to be with Patty? What if they never had their children? Putting myself in those shoes, there was like a desperation and a real fear that connected with me, that I think just made it all feel real to me. So I thought about getting to Patty a lot of it.
It's such a relatable thing. I think everyone's had the moment being like, God, if I look back and I just hadn't made this choice or gotten my act together at this time or something, like there's a hinge moment in every life like that, it doesn't produce Nebraska for most of us, but for Bruce, I guess it did.
Sure.
I was thinking about, I think I was reading how you kind of grew up doing theater in school and did a lot of dancing, but there was no singing. Like singing was new to you for this. You hadn't had any of that like theater kid singing training and growing up.
No, the acting and dance were all very separate. I did ballet, tap, and jazz for a long time without any acting, and then I kind of just dropped the dance and went straight into just acting. So it wasn't like I was like a theater kid necessarily in like the sense of, going out and seeing musicals and wanting to be in musicals. I didn't have that. They were two like separate things, and I was always afraid of singing.
Well, I think you also talked about performing at the Stone Pony or, spending the time on stage. There's the scenes from The River early on, that kind of intensity of being in front of a crowd like that. And as someone who's been on film and TV for such a long time, like you've got some of that theater background. Like, is there anything that prepared you in what you did that were younger when you were younger to have that kind of like crowd experience that you have performing as Bruce in this movie?
I think it's just the same thing as it's always been, and it can be performing as Bruce, it can be performing a song, but I'm still chasing the same thing. I think, the first time I got sort of on a stage in front of people doing something other than dance was in like a black box when I was 12 years old, and it was that I got on stage with one other actor and felt that sense of like real presence and kind of like time standing still and like my ability to sort of focus for the first time in my life, like on someone else, on the moment. I had found like I was a really anxious kid and continued to be a very anxious sort of person. And my mind is always sort of in the future or in the past. And I found a great sense of presence, I think, in acting, and I felt very lucky, I think, in these moments. Like, you're always chasing that between action and cut, that moment of real, presence and awareness and availability. But I think when you have a guitar in your hands and you're singing, those are just extra tools to help you get a little bit further away from yourself and more in the moment and more grounded in the moment. And then when you have an audience around you, that demands even more presence. So I don't know if it was like if it prepared me for it, but I felt that sense of like chasing. I felt that sense of like chasing that feeling that I found when I was very young and on stage more often than I am now.
You never had the hammy kid thing of like getting a laugh and like going harder and harder. And I feel like that's a lot of people's origin stories.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't have been a lot. Like, I think I remembered even on stage, like whatever, in middle school, like I remember feeling eyes on me, certainly, yes.
Yeah,
I remember even more specifically realizing, even when I wasn't saying anything, if I was like particularly in that moment, that there is an attention. And I thought, what a powerful thing to like, I enjoy seeing actors who have like, they demand your attention in silence. And I think I had felt that when I was like 13. I was like, oh shit, this is wild.
Yeah.
There's other things going on. There's other movement. There's other noise. But I feel eyes and silence. And I went, oh, that's powerful. I want more attention.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I wanted.
I mean, I feel like attention and silence and grasp of silence is such a big part of this movie. Like, as Bruce, you're spending a ton of time alone. Like, there's so much literal silence. And so how do you're working with Scott, who you have this trust with, how do you get that same sense that like, that you've grabbed them in that silence and not that people are drifting away from you? How do you get the confidence that it's gone the right way?
I mean, it certainly wasn't easy. I mean, I think that is what it is. It's trust in Scott, trust in our DP, Masa, who is like such a dance partner. He's also the camera operator in this film, and is usually camera operator. And there is like such an intimate relationship, especially with like a handheld camera operator and an actor when they're alone, and in kind of trying to find their eyes in the moment without giving them too much kind of like direction. And trusting, like, do I have something going on that the camera is picking up? So it's trusting Masa, it's trusting Scott. But there were definitely days where I had doubts. I mean, there's like such a big portion of the film, which is something I really enjoyed in reading the film, which was sort of getting invited into the creative process and inspiration and reading Flannery O'Connor and watching Badlands, which is a movie that meant a lot to me. as a young person, so I knew whatever. I had these things, but then you're in a room for 3 days looking at a book and looking at a TV screen. And yeah, I left all 3 of those days going like, is this am I commanding the screen watching something? That's definitely like a doubt or an insecurity that I had. But I think it's always the same. It's like, no matter how brief, if it's an eighth of a page, you need to find a beginning, middle, and end for the moment. And a trust, when that camera is close to you, if you have something real going on, it will see it. And if it's not real and it's not true, it's also a lie detector, and it will say, no, this is dishonest. And so I think what it came down to is exactly what you said. It was trust between Scott and then I think Masa, especially in some of those moments, because I think the camera is such it really picks up. It picks up the truth, but it also can pick up a lie very easily,
I mean, when you start acting in front of the camera when 18, 19, when Shameless starts, do you feel like you just kind of learned that like instinctively at a certain point, like what the camera is going to see, what it's not? It feels like something that'd be very hard to teach if you haven't just done it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt really lucky having so much time in front of a camera, on Shameless specifically.
Yeah.
Every year for 5-6 months, I was in front of a camera and I got familiar with, lenses and how close the camera is, and I got curious about actors and would listen to them and the way they spoke about acting with the camera and but I think where I kind of ran into trouble is like I don't really ever watch myself, and so
You never have?
I mean, I have done it before, but it's not something I do always,
You
and
don't
it's
seek it
something
out.
I
Yeah.
like have a hard time with. And so I feel like there's probably lessons in there I could learn, absolutely, that I've just like refused because I feel like I could crumble and
It's worked out okay so far.
sure, it's been okay, but I guess to answer your question, yeah, I think screen acting with a camera, you do have to, unfortunately, you need the opportunity, yes, to do it and the time in front of the camera.
Yeah.
It's different than acting on a stage.
Yeah. I'm curious about how you've gotten to this point where you have, Scott Cooper meets with you. You have options being put in front of you. You have the luxury of choice, which so many actors never get to have. Yeah. And you also presumably have a lot of people around you saying, here's how you seize this moment. Here's how you strike while it's hot. Here's the thing that makes the most sense to you. You've been working for a long time, so I assume you have the people you work with who you trust. But how do you figure out who to listen to when a moment like this arrives for you after working for so long?
I mean, I do have a couple people around me that I've worked with for a very long time, but at the end of the day, the trust goes both ways, and they have a lot of respect for the way that I they're not going to push me into one thing or the other. We're always going to have a conversation about sort of what's next, and sometimes we're looking at a couple things and seeing what sort of fits. But I think it's just listening to myself, and if I feel like close to something in that moment, if I feel like I can lend myself in some way that's helpful ultimately to the film and to the story and to this director, I think of acting, I think of myself as in service to the director, to the writer, to the film, and before I get started, I want to make sure that I can be of service in the best way possible. So first things first is, is this for me? And then I think I know pretty quickly in the first 20 pages or 25 pages of reading something, does this interest me? Is this something that I want to see? And then for the longest time, and this remains to be true, it's, is there someone involved in this production, whether it be the actor, director, writer, a producer, a DP, whatever it is, someone I admire, someone I think I can learn from.
Yeah.
And yes, I am in like a very lucky position now where there are several things with many people I can learn from coming my way, but that tends to be the biggest sort of the biggest thing, and that's been my biggest kind of like guide, I would say.
How do you go about learning from someone on a set? Like, is it an active thing, or is it, 4 years later, you're like, oh yeah, I remember watching, someone do this on the set of the Iron Claw and I've taken it with me. How do you approach it as a student?
I think it's observational. So much of this work is observational, and I don't know if it's something you're incredibly aware of in the moment. I think it's something that you realize most often later, that you've kind of like taken this or that. Certainly not during the process of filming something, because while you're in the moment and working on something, I think it would be strange to kind of like change your kind of like approach in that moment.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's something that, I mean, in me studying Bruce Springsteen, I've been very lucky. I wanted certain things to kind of like, hopefully in learning, just become part of my being and seep into me a little bit. And a lot of that is just like crossing your fingers. And I feel a similar way to working with great actors or great directors, where just being available and witnessing them, you just hope that some of it's going to rub off on you. And then a year later, you'll go, oh, maybe that was Strong there.
It worked.
Maybe that was Jeremy Strong. Yeah.
Do you learn the secret to boundless energy from being around Bruce Springsteen? I've always wondered where he gets it from.
No. I mean, I wish that was something that I could take from him. No, it is remarkable, though. I mean, I've seen him perform several times now. I mean, it's in his presence in everyday life, but seeing him perform at the age of 76 years old for 3.5, 4 hours is pretty remarkable. And I've been on stage performing the same song of his for 3 hours. And, I remember I would bring weighted jump rope to set with me for those days that I was performing on stage, because I thought I would have to keep my heart rate up. And then I realized just pretending to be him for 2.5 hours with a cut, rest time. I was exhausted. Yeah.
I don't know if he still slides across the stage on his knees. I saw him like a decade ago, and like I felt it in my knees just watching. It was crazy.
No, I have not seen him do that in a couple of years. No.
So there is a limit. He is mortal on some level.
Yes.
I have a very minor Star Wars question for you before I go, and I think you're allowed to answer it. Rhoda the Hutt? Rhoda? How do you pronounce it? Rata. Okay. My follow-up question is, I think you've said it's something that your kids can actually see. And as someone with kids, I think a little bit the similar age, like I have a really hard time convincing them that a voice actor is like matters. Like I met the voice behind EJ and K-pop Demon, or behind Rumi and K-pop Demon Hunters. They're like, okay, fine. Like, do you feel like your kids have grasped or will grasp at some point that you are in fact in a Star War?
I think they'll be excited. Like my daughter, especially my youngest, loves Grogu so much, and I think she'll be excited that I'm like, I would say I'm sharing the screen, and she would go, no, you're
That's
not.
not you. That doesn't look like you. Yeah.
So I'm sure I will have some arguments with my 5-year-old.
That does it for today's episode. We will have another special interview episode of this podcast for you again on Saturday. And as always, there's more coming at Prestige Junkie After Party every Friday. Special bonus episodes, chats, all kinds of stuff. Please subscribe, $5 a month. We would love to see you there. This podcast is edited by Brett Fuchs and produced by Brett Fuchs and me. Our theme music is by Dave Gonzalez. Thanks again to my co-host today, Chris Rosen. You can subscribe to the Prestige Junkie newsletter at theankler.com and to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you Saturday.